Hello, everybody. It is 1 o'clock here in the Eastern time zone, so I will get this presentation started. Wanted to thank everybody for coming to the NNP Symposium. This is the 5th symposium that we've had the privilege of offering, so we're excited that you could join us. The NNP Symposium is made possible by the Eric P. Newman Numismatic Education Society. So we want to give them thanks for allowing this to happen and allowing you guys to come and learn from industry-leading experts, all for free over Zoom. So very thankful for them. I'll go over a few things before I introduce our speakers for the hour. The first of which being, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So if at any time throughout the presentation you have questions or anything like that, just drop them in there. We'll have a Q&A time at the end of the presentation, but you can put your questions in there as you think of them, whenever you have them. So feel free to utilize that. And the other thing being, we do post all of the recordings for these presentations on our website. So if you didn't get to see one that you wanted to, or you want to rewatch one or share one with a friend, whatever the case is, they will all be available on our website in roughly 2 weeks after the event. So that is all of the housekeeping, I guess, stuff that I have for this presentation. So I will introduce our speakers, and guys, if you guys want to unmute yourself and start your video, you can do that. So I would like to introduce to you guys a panel that we have the privilege of offering. We have Barbara, Wayne, and David with us today, talking about club publications, creating and sustaining relevance. So excited to hear from these people. They're all editors in the field, and so excited to hear what they have to say. So I'll let you guys take it away.
Well, that's great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Newman Numismatic Portal Forum, your club publication creating and sustaining relevance. Participating today are David Heinrich. David is editor of the Cincinnati Numismatist, published by the Cincinnati Numismatic Association. Wayne Homren, editor of the E-Sylum, which is published by the Numismatic Bibliomania Society, and me, Barbara Gregory. I'm editor of the Centinel, which is published by the Central States Numismatic Society. I also will serve as moderator for this forum today. So first, our participants will tell you a bit about themselves and their respective publications. And this will be followed by an open discussion of publishing approaches and challenges, after which I'll open the floor to audience questions. So, David, why don't you lead off? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm president of the Cincinnati Numismatic Association and the editor. I've been the editor for about 12 years. I took it over when my daughter, Katie, who had done it before me, went off to college and didn't know what I was doing. So I learned kind of along the way. I've also taught numismatic photography at summer seminar for a number of years with Clark Fogg. I guess that's about it, really, numismatically.
And well, thanks, David, and Wayne, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wayne Homren. I'm a longtime numismatist, life member of the Western Pennsylvania Numismatic Society. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, along with some great numismatists there in that club. I edit a publication, as Barbara mentioned, called the E-Sylum, which is on behalf of the Numismatic Bibliomania Society. We are people who just are crazy for books about coins. And you could tell from a portion of my library you see behind me. We just love history of coins, anything written about them. The E-Sylum came about back in 1998, so we're in our 25th year at this point. It is an electronic online publication. There is no physical printing, so which makes for some other issues that you may or may not have with your particular publications if it's a print journal. But very glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
And Again, I'm Barbara Gregory, and I edited the American Numismatic Association's magazine, The Numismatist, for 32 years. And not long after I retired in 2020, Central States Numismatic Society President Mitch Ernst asked if I might be interested in revamping and editing the Centinel, which is the Society's quarterly journal. I had wanted to remain active in the hobby and in publishing on a part-time basis, and working with Central States gives me that opportunity. So I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to picking up some tips and tricks myself. So let me start out with this question, and David, I'll be asking you to address this question first. What is the mission of the Cincinnati Numismatist, and how does its format and content help fulfill that mission?
Well, I would say to keep members informed about the club and to learn more about numismatics as a whole. Format wise, I think what helps with that is on the very front page at the bottom, we have our meeting schedule for the current time and the next 11 or 12 months.
Right, and
So,
Andy, if I could ask you too to go ahead and put up that visual that we have. Thank you so much. Go ahead, David, I'm sorry.
You can see up there in the top left at the bottom of that front cover is the meeting schedule. Also on the back cover, as you see a close-up down at the bottom, it gives the coin show schedule, which are coin shows that are close to Cincinnati. Some of them get a little further away, or they're national events or regional events such as Central States and the ANA. The other thing is club news, which will mention the speaker for that month, or if we don't have a speaker, what else is going on at the meeting, and any other things that are going on. And then you can see a couple examples of articles on that front page and on the page next to it. Also, there's a membership application and a form for different things that the club sells, a medal, 90th anniversary issue, a red book with a book plate in it. So that's the mission and how we do it, I guess you would say. And it's printed every month. We don't send any out electronically. We're probably one of the last ones that does it that way. And I don't know if we'll always do that in the future, but that's the way we're doing it now.
That's great, David. And Wayne, what is the mission of the E-Sylum, and how does its format and content help fulfill its mission?
Okay, sure. Our primary purposes are very similar. Like any club publication, we started this as a way of keeping in touch with our members. In this case, it was a way to reach out to our members in between the quarterly schedule of our print publication. So we ended up with a weekly schedule, and that allowed a lot of opportunity in between those larger publication dates. We also like to educate our readers. It's also a way, because it's out on the internet, it is a way for us to discover new members and for them to discover us. So over the years, we've added quite a number of new members who have learned about us just on the internet from seeing some of our articles or being forwarded a copy of the issue. We, of course, promote numismatic literature, and any new book about numismatics is highlighted in the journal. You can see right up in the top of at the top right is the table of contents of a sample issue from October 30th. And you can see right up top, we have articles about new books. So it's information about our society, information about new books, and we've gradually expanded over the years to really cover a very wide range of general numismatic topics, just educating people in general about numismatics and about how to do some of the research and writing that makes it so interesting and fun.
I'd say that 3 words capture the mission of the Central States Numismatic Society and its quarterly publication, the Centinel, and that is building collector community. I see the Centinel as the heart of this grassroots collector community. It highlights the interests, challenges, and strengths of its members. It supports the needs of this vibrant numismatic region. And it serves as a refreshing review of basic numismatic concepts and on occasion presents new research. You'll see that it is a magazine format, comes out quarterly. It's roughly right now 42 to 48 pages. We try to feature about 3 feature stories a month. We have 4 regular columnists, and we have a Central States News section where we highlight what's going on with our members in this 13-state area, which encompasses Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, North Dakota, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. So although that's our core membership, we don't restrict news and topics to that area specifically. We encourage it, but it's not a requirement. So everything we do really is just to, as I said, to build collector community and support our members. So on to our next question. What role does your publication play within your organization and the hobby community as a whole? And David, would you like to address that?
Well, I mean, for our publication, it comes out once a month. As I mentioned, it keeps our members informed about what's going on with the club, and what numismatic events are going on nearby, and hopefully some interesting articles for them to read. It's mailed out every month in advance of the meeting, about 2 weeks. It's also distributed at local coin stores and at the monthly show. So it's given out free to anybody who wants a copy. I guess, that's pretty much covers what it does and what it's for.
And Wayne.
Yeah, I would say in terms of our role, because of the nature of our subscribership, we have a lot of people who are extremely serious about numismatic study. We have authors of books, regular writers in multiple publications, people that do a lot of the hardcore research. And as a result of that, sometimes the information that pops up in one of our issues is kind of a first draft of something new in terms of numismatic research. I mean, we've had in the past, discussions about, say, the continental dollar, and people would mention, "Oh, I just found this bit of information," and we put it in there, and then someone else would write back and, "Oh, that's really interesting. I think that relates to something else." And over the course of multiple issues, it's like a conversation among some of the top researchers around the country and the world. And as I said, it kind of makes like a first draft of very early bits of information that can lead to much more in-depth articles. And in a number of occasions, people have started with ideas that they found in the E-Sylum and written an entire book. For instance, Fred Reed wrote a book about stage currency, basically that type of fake money that's used in movies. It just started with a conversation and some illustrations in an E-Sylum article, and he was inspired by that and ended up writing, quite a thick book and catalog of them. So I think that's one of the major roles that it plays in the hobby in general.
And for the Centinel, for many of our members, the Centinel is their only contact with the society. The journal keeps them apprised of Central States activities and policies and keeps them abreast of coin shows and other activities in the Central States region. I like to think it also widens their horizons by introducing readers to a variety of numismatic fields, and it shares information regarding major numismatic developments across the nation. I've always felt in my work in hobby publishing, and honestly, with any magazine that I receive in the mail from any group or on any topic, that if I find even one or two items of interest, I feel that my membership and my subscription have served their purpose, and I'm always happy when I take away a nugget or two, and so that's always my my mission for our readers. Andy, going forward, we probably don't have to share these screens, but if David or Wayne, if going on, you'd like to call up your publication again as to illustrate what you're speaking about, that would be fine. So to ask you gentlemen then, what changes did you face in creating or redesigning your publication? And David, I said, we'll start with you.
Well, I didn't create it from the beginning. My daughter Katie did, and gosh, maybe back in 2004, I think she started, and she did that, like I said, until she went off to college. So I had the format, although I didn't know how a publisher worked, so that was a major challenge for me. And there were a number of times when I would call her at college and say, I messed this up, how do I fix it? So it took me a while to learn it and get comfortable with the program and know how to do more things. That was probably challenge number one. There's been other challenges like, soliciting content, something I think we all have. And early on, I solved that problem by asking permission to reprint from people I met in the hobby. And also, I would sometimes in desperation just search the internet, just do a search for numismatics or for coins or whatever. And if I found, sometimes I would found an article and send an email off and ask for permission to reprint. And a surprising number of times I would get a yes. So that was one way to solve that problem. We don't have advertising. There is no staff, although my wife does proofreading for me. And before the girls went off to college, they also would proofread. I've done a little bit of redesigning lately, but not enough to really mention, I would say. So I think I covered all those points.
Yes, and Wayne, please go ahead.
Well, for me, challenges are similar, I suppose. One thing is a little different for our publication is, since it's not limited to our members, it's free to the world. Anybody who wants to become a reader of the E-Sylum can do that for free. Anybody listening who's not already a subscriber can go to e-sylum.org and sign up there. But getting new subscribers is it just takes a lot of time. I know I have a number of people, Harvey Stack for one, would call me up all the time and say, boy, this is such a great publication. How come you don't have 10 times the number of readers? And I never had a good answer for him, other than the fact that we just kind of add them onesies and twosies by word of mouth recommendation. And bit by bit, we've grown to several thousand readers at this point, which has been marvelous. David mentioned advertising. That was something that I did not do initially, but over time we started adding advertisers, and it was tough because I'm manage the entire publication from soup to nuts, and I'm not particularly good of a salesperson. I was not out there soliciting new ads. I kind of relied on our board to do that, but it wasn't happening. we only had a few advertisers. So one day I just decided to take it into my own hands and started reaching out and asking people if they would. And just like David, when he started asking people about reprinting articles, when I started asking people about putting in ads, about 70% of them said, sure. I was really amazed and delighted with that. And we've had ads in the issue ever since. So those are two problems. They never go away. Subscribers, eventually go away. Advertisers might change their business. So we're always looking for new ones to replenish it. So those are perennial problems, I think, for any publication.
And I agree wholeheartedly with both of you. I think we all face those dilemmas, and we're all pretty much a staff of one. And then we'll talk about that a little bit later. For me, one of the first things I did when I joined the staff of Central States and the Centinel, I was charged with redesigning the publication. It was a 6x9, predominantly black and white publication, and the Central States board and officers just wanted to shake things up a bit. So I enjoy design work, and so I was happy to get started with that. So having retired recently from the Numismatist, I had to work hard at making the appearance of the Centinel different from the ANA's publication. That the style sheets and layouts of the Numismatist were so ingrained in me after all those years that I had to readjust my mindset. So the new format is different, certainly, and but I think it's a noticeable improvement over what there was before, and I think it's the publication is more engaging, and I hope that's true. Regarding the content of the Centinel, I really try to focus on our slogan, building collector community, and my experience has taught me that collectors are always seeking validation of their interests, and so we like to share stories of fellow hobbyists' passions, their challenge, successes, and failures, much as we're doing right now. And I want to include stories that are informative and reaffirming for those folks. And however, some readers do look forward to new research and learning new techniques, and I try to accommodate them as often as possible. I think over time, since the Centinel is kind of rebuilding its readership after a year or more during COVID, I think that our submissions, our author submissions, will grow and include some new research. Illustrations are important in virtually every publication, and but that said, I draw the line at low quality art. I feel that sometimes we're desperate for art, and we'll grab whatever we can find, even if it's a really crummy illustration or photograph. But I would rather have no graphics than substandard graphics. I think poor quality art reflects on the overall relevance, appeal, and accuracy of a publication. David touched on this, that as a staff of one, that proofreading is a challenge for probably all of us. And however, and I've noticed too that the more changes that I make in the draft and proof phases of production, the greater the chances of errors. And so I too am thankful for some fact-checking assistance from Central States staff and board members, and as well as the eagle eye of another knowledgeable editor, my husband, who is a former newspaper city editor. So I make sure that he can take a look at whatever goes to press. And like Wayne, I discovered over the years that advertising sales are not my forte. I enjoy designing ads for clients, but I leave the sales to other members of the board and to the staff. Because Central States Convention Manager Larry Shepard is in contact with so many dealers, he's in a good position to promote advertising sales. And I think that, again, as we have more readers, that our ad sales are going to go up as well. So, David, are you having any issues there with your system? Are you doing okay?
The battery's going low and the cord is, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, all right, we'll keep our fingers crossed. So, David, how do you assess your readers' interests and needs for the Cincinnati Numismatist?
Well, I have to say I don't really do much proactively. Members will come up to me at meetings and say, gee, I'd like to see an article on ancients or something else. And as much as I can, I'll try to solicit to those requests. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it probably doesn't. And, you know, actually with this question being on the list, maybe it's something I will do is be a little more proactive and ask members if there's something they'd like to see.
And Wayne, because, you know, the electronic nature of the E-Sylum, you get a lot of feedback though, pretty all the time. And so, but how do you assess your readers' interests and their needs?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're very lucky to be online, and I get a lot of feedback by email. You know, by mid-afternoon Monday, my inbox is filled. We publish on a Sunday night, and it takes a good while to get through that. But those keep coming in throughout the week, whether it's a comment on an earlier article or, you know, a suggestion or an idea for something new. So by far, email is the way that I connect with my readers.
After my decades in numismatic publishing, I have kind of developed a sense of what readers want and what they expect to see in the literature that arrives in their physical or their virtual mailbox. I have, in the past, however, benefited greatly from reader surveys and have found that an impressive percentage of subscribers are willing to share their thoughts. Just as David and Wayne have saying that if you ask, you'll be surprised that you'll get a response from people. So SurveyMonkey is an affordable online platform that provides that is provided your member database includes email addresses, because it depends that you've got to be able to have that access to your members' email addresses to send them an invitation to participate in a SurveyMonkey survey. And just be advised that there is an art to survey creation. And so to that end, if you think that you might want to survey your members at some point, just save copies of surveys that you receive from other organizations, even if they're not numismatic. That will give you a little insight into the science of surveying. And I found surveys to be very helpful going forward. Now, that said, if you're dealing with a smaller group, you might just want to poll your members, even in your publication, say, you know, what do you think about such and such? What would you like to see? What's your favorite? What are your interests? What's your favorite topic? And that will give you some feedback as well. We talked briefly about how we find and solicit content, and I wondered if you'd like to share any further thoughts on that. And so, David, you mentioned that you seek reprints, and as do I. But any other things that you would like to add there?
Well, yeah, we actually kind of stole an idea from Central States years ago. They had I forget what it was called, but basically you would say, yes, send me a medal and I will write an article for the Centinel. So we changed that to kind of any numismatic item, and the club would buy some or would get donated items or whatever and pre-package them that would be pre-photographed and sent out. The person would write an article and that would create content. And that actually helped get some new writers. Some of them have turned out to be, you know, just continuing contributors. At this point, I have a couple of authors who will from time to time ask me for a subject. And I've been lucky enough to suggest a couple that have turned into really great articles. So again, I guess it comes down to asking, but other things can happen. Like I said, if you have some way to spark an interest in writing, such as giving a coin out to write about, you might wind up with a new batch of authors.
Previously, the editor of the Centinel, Jerry Tebben, he had talked about that program and said that it did yield some articles for the Centinel, but he said there was a problem sometimes when people would lift topics wholesale off of Wikipedia. And so he said he did have to watch out for people not providing original content or verbiage, but otherwise he said that it was a good program for Central States. Wayne, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, although the focus of the NBS is coin books, that's a very specialized topic. But really the common theme is that people who are interested in books about coins, those are the people who are interested in the history of coins. They're interested in economics and art and biographies of people. They're interested in a very wide range of topics. So that makes it a little easier for me. We actually have a much wider field to choose from. And I, particularly as a reader in general, I read like crazy everywhere outside the hobby. I read newspapers every day. I'm looking at things on the internet. And a lot of times articles related to numismatics pop up. Sometimes it's directly numismatic, sometimes it's a little indirect, but I can make those connections. And that gives me some fodder for future articles. Another thing that I do is use Google Alerts. So I've set up some basic alerts that I get emails in my inbox every day when Google finds an article or a new page out on the web that matches those search terms. And I just use very generic search terms, things like coin collector, rare coin, things like that. There's a handful of very specific ones that I put in, because I know some of my readers are interested in them. Like we have a lot of articles on metals, and so I look for certain types of metals, and when something pops up about those, that gives us an idea. But others come from readers. Luckily, we do have regular contributors. You could call them columnists. I mean, they're in week after week, and can always count on them for something. Very grateful for that assistance. We both mentioned reprints, and one thing that I've been doing, Dick Johnson was a regular contributor for years and years. He was the previous editor of Coin World, founding editor, big expert on metals, and he had written a book on the vocabulary relating to metals and numismatics. And he would send me chapters or little pieces from that book week after week. And after he passed away, I just reached out to his widow, and she was happy with us continuing with that. He had made an agreement to put his content on the Newman Numismatic Portal. So for me, that gives me an extra article every week. I just have to go to the effort of picking a new one and formatting it for publication. So there are multiple ways to get at content, but those are the primary ones for me.
Wayne mentioned, I find that one thing that's been wonderful for the Centinel and for the Numismatist as well was to have a stable of regular columnists and contributors. And it serves a variety of purposes. Number one, when you have a stable of columnists, they can address different needs and topics on a regular basis. So that way your publication covers a wide variety of interests for your readers. Also, your columnists generally have a little bit more experience than some of your feature writers. And so preparing their articles for publication is often is easier. They've been through it. They know what you're looking for, and they know how to tell a story quickly and in a way that's easily understood by readers. I believe that if you have an engaging, accurate, and welcoming publication, that the authors will come. And as you know, and as we've all discussed, that if you read and enjoy authors and other publications, contact them and ask them if they would be willing to write for you. Though remuneration of their efforts is not required, and a lot of us don't have the finances to pay authors. Authors often appreciate a reasonable payment or a small honorarium of some kind. Keep your eyes on articles and other publications that might be a good fit for your publication. Many authors and publishers, as we've said, are happy to grant permission to repeat, provided appropriate credit is given. They oftentimes don't mind if you condense an article or you edit it slightly. But what I always do with any of those folks, and indeed all of our writers, is I send them a copy for their approval before we go to press. It avoids a lot of problems. Now, that said, because we're quarterly, I have the time to do that. And Wayne certainly does not. And David, being a monthly, that cuts your turnaround time down quite a bit. Now, how do the two of you keep your publication fresh and relevant? David?
Well, I try to occasionally throw something different in. Like, for instance, I got a crossword puzzle maker, and I'll create a numismatic crossword puzzle from time to time to put that in, just so it's something different. Also, I'll try to hit on current topics. For instance, when the Queen passed away, one of our continuing authors, I asked him to write something about it, and he had a kind of a different view and wrote something numismatic about her coinage with her images. And or it might be something else, like a historical date for World War II or something, or World War I, or the Civil War, or any other historical event, and try to, tie an article or articles to it. So.
And there are there's a number of websites where you can go and see, like, this day in history or this month in history. And that's always a great source of ideas. And if you have a stable of writers who you can count on to put something together, I oftentimes create a calendar of those events so that I've got something at the ready to offer somebody as a topic for an article. Wayne?
I would say there are two main ways that I keep the E-Sylum relevant. One is that constant reading that I do in the general press. I read newspapers, I read magazines, and I often come across topics that have some connection to numismatics, either direct or indirect. And that gives me something that I can put into the issue, ask readers for comments on, reach out to regular columnists or reach out to experts. Say, it's Nobel Prize season. Well, maybe it's a good time for an article about, well, who was the designer of that medal? and who collects them, that sort of thing. The other venue for relevancy are the auctions, because that's very current. If a interesting, famous, valuable coin is coming up for auction, that's fodder for discussion in the E-Sylum. Since our readers care a lot about the history, we don't really write much of anything about grading or prices. But if a coin has an interesting history, we will write about that. And the auction companies, of course, they love the publicity, and getting into a publication is free publicity for them, and they're very happy to share images and text with you. So that's a regular feature. In fact, I have my own column that I write, which is basically, I call it numismatic nuggets. And it's just interesting things that I see in the numismatic market. Sometimes it's a very rare, very valuable coin. Other times it's something that just popped up on eBay, an old medal or token. Maybe it's worth $20, but it's interesting because it has an interesting history. So those are two ways that we try to keep relevant.
And another thought too is there's been quite a few numismatic books coming out lately. I think that maybe during COVID, folks who had been meaning to write about their particular fascination had a little more time and inspiration. So I've been seeing a lot more books coming out. And so book reviews and announcements of new books is also a good way to share information and get people interested in a new topic, perhaps. As far as what I try to do is I think about what our readers are interested in, what they like to read. And if a particular topic or presentation bores me, it's likely going to be received similarly by our readers. That said, sometimes an article represents groundbreaking research, and in that case, it's smart to give such authors an audience for their work. It may be an area that's not necessarily riveting for everyone, but if it presents something that's of interest in the numismatic community as a whole, I think it's important to give people a venue for that publication. And as I mentioned previously, I really believe that readers like validation of their interests and efforts. So you can't go wrong, as far as I'm concerned, with sharing stories of readers' personal experiences. Now, we had discussed about where to mine for articles and whatnot, but along those lines, do you have a formula for effectively harnessing the talents of your readers and your club members and perhaps your board of directors?
Not specifically. There have been times when a member actually wrote a review of one of the speakers we had at a meeting, and a really great review of it. And so that became an article. And that way people who weren't at the meeting, because we have well over 100 members, and not all of them come to meetings by any stretch of the imagination. So that was able to get that information out to everyone else. I'm maybe again after this symposium, that's something I'll work on, is trying to harness that power a little better. But I don't really have much else to say on that subject.
No, and David, I think that because you work with a coin club that meets on a monthly basis, whereas Wayne and I don't have that, I think running synopsises of the presenters and the programs is a brilliant idea, and I think that can encourage people to speak up, with letters or commentary about that, or as you said, write articles of their own. Wayne.
Yeah, I would say one way that I engage with our readers is simply by asking questions. We put in an article or maybe a comment from another reader, and at the end, I'll basically ask, what do you think? What do you know about this topic? Now, as you see, I have a whole numismatic library behind me, and I could very easily pick a book off the shelf and have at least an answer to whatever question it is. And I don't do that for two reasons. All right. One, well, maybe three. All right. I'm lazy. I don't have the time, but mostly it leaves things open-ended for the readers to contribute. Because whatever it is I could come up with on my own, it's probably going to be very different from what a reader could come up with, because often there is an absolute expert in whatever that particular topic is out there reading my publication. And I get some amazing results back from people, things I never would have expected. And related to that, you know, when I ask questions like this, I often have some idea or hopes that I would get a response. But honestly, after 25 years of doing this, I have no idea whatsoever what people are going to respond to. So that actually encourages me to mix it up and throw in some things that I wouldn't ordinarily throw in. It's like, yeah, maybe this is just filler. But sometimes that little tiny thing I put in as filler will generate 4 responses from people around the world. So it's always hit or miss, but the common theme is, you know, put some things in there and ask some questions.
And I think too, along those lines, that running letters to the editor is is very important. Wayne, I think, just does it inherently because there's such a give and take in this electronic publication. David, during your club meetings, you can ask your members, it's like, well, what did you think about the recent issue of the Cincinnati Numismatist? And so, and then jot down what some of the people at the meeting might say, and then you can create your own letters to the editor and put them in the next issue. I'd be lying if I didn't say that over the years, I didn't create some letters to the editor in various publications just to engender some and encourage some discussion on a topic. Regarding effectively harnessing the talents of your board and your club members, you know, just tap into their strengths and ask them to weigh in on topics on which they are knowledgeable. I mean, Coin Club meetings and shows are prime opportunities for editorial networking. And as David mentioned too, if you enjoyed a member's show and tell presentation or an exhibit, you can ask them to write an article on that subject. Or, and again, the fellow who wrote a review of it, I said, I think that's brilliant. Let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of electronic publishing. And David, I'm going to skip over you just for a moment because you do paper exclusively, as do I. And I want Wayne to field this one initially, and then we can weigh in here.
Okay, we've been electronic from day one. It is definitely different from a print publication. And I can tell you that, you know, prior to starting the E-Sylum, I had helped out with other publications for some of the clubs. You know, I was the secretary for my club, putting out a newsletter back in those days. You know, it was all about layout and copying the whole bit. And, you know, actually laying out a publication on a page was something I just didn't feel I had the patience for. I could do it. I love seeing a really nice finished product, but I really did not want to do the work. It's a lot of work, as you both know, getting things to fit on a page. You know, you have to, you know, size the photos, you might have to edit the text just to get it to fit. And for me, that's the blessing of an electronic publication, because there's always room for more. So I've never actually printed out one of my publications. So I couldn't tell you how many print pages it would take. So that's kind of the joy for me of numismatic publishing on an electronic format.
And I, unlike you, for me, copy fitting and finding pictures and getting things to fit, that's the fun part for me. I enjoy that. And so, David, if you don't mind, I want to just offer a couple of comments and then ask you to weigh in here. I think that in this age of instant gratification and limited time, that a lot of readers favor the ready availability of electronic newsletters and journals, which often are offered at a reduced rate over printed media. But especially I noticed this with the Numismatist when I worked for the ANA, that some dues-paying members opted for that lower-priced alternative, but over time, they started dismissing the reminders that the magazine was online, ready to read, and they'd forget to check their inbox. And so when they were solicited for dues renewal, some of the electronics subscribers think, I believe, I haven't read that online publication in months, so why should I bother to renew? So I'm a firm believer that a printed publication sits on a desk or on a bedside table, and it's always reminding the subscriber to read me. There's always that reminder. They might not get to it right away, but it's always there looking at them. So I think that there are great pros to both electronic publishing and printed publications. And so David, any comments?
Yeah, I would agree. There's pros and cons to both. And like you, I enjoy doing the layout. It's probably what I like more than anything else about doing a publication, and I'll get lost in it and hours will pass and I haven't even noticed because I'm just so focused on it, especially on larger articles. And that's something I do lengthwise. I will increase the length of our newsletter to accommodate large articles. So a normal, if you will, is 8 pages, four sheets of paper. But I've had them be 16, 18, 20, 22 pages long, just because someone's got an in-depth article, or I have an abundance of content. That's actually happened to me, not very often, but it's happened a number of times. And there's a number of members have said to me they just like to hold it in their hands and sit down and read it. There's something about the tangible thing that you hold. And actually some of our members, apparently I've learned, have created an archive of our newsletters. They save them. So there are pros and cons. The ability to get something out quick and as Wayne mentioned, to pretty much any length. And once he's done, he can print it or publish it, and it's available immediately to everyone. Whereas I have to print it, I have to put it in envelopes, it's to go through the mail, so it's days or maybe a week before somebody gets it. So yeah, there's pros and cons to both. No.
Yeah, well, and David, you obviously have you've set publication standards for yourself, and so how do you maintain your those standards of excellence for the Cincinnati Numismatist?
I try to keep I'm always looking at any printed matter that I come across, magazines, newspapers, advertisements, and I'm actually, electronic or whatever, looking for ideas for layout for the way things are done, and taking those ideas and morphing them into something that I use in our newsletter. We have one writer from our club who's doing a series of articles on eagles, cultures, and coins. And I was driving along one day listening to Sirius XM, and this artwork from an album popped up on the screen, and that gave me an idea for artwork for his series of articles. So I guess, like I said, I'm just always looking everywhere at design work, and trying to see how I can fit that in. I used to also was the editor for Women in Numismatics for their publication, Winning Ways. And I started on the covers. I started looking for sets of colors. So I would sometimes I'd be in a paint store and I'd grab these paint swatches that some designer had, come up with 3 paint colors that go together. Would actually scan that and use those 3 colors for the text on the front cover of the magazine. Because somebody else picked out 3 colors that really work well together and I didn't have to do it. So there's lots of ways you can look at the world around you and incorporate it into what you're doing.
That's right. That's right. Wayne, how do you consistently produce such a great e-newsletter every week?
Well, certainly a lot of work goes into it, and I can tell you that there's a lot that ends up on the cutting room floor. Despite the length of our issues, we have up to 30 articles these days. There are dozens and dozens of potential articles and ideas that I choose not to use. I have a certain set priority order that I use to help rank ideas that go in. Certainly anything about our club is number 1, anything about books or book reviews are number 2 and 3, things on people and history, are next. And it goes on down the line from there, and getting into more generic articles like, a hoard of ancient coins was found. That's interesting, and I put it in there when I can. But if I have, 5 or 6 different articles about hoards being found, I'm not going to put them all in the issue. So it's just a matter of making choices, and I'm very lucky to be blessed with lots of potential ideas for content.
No, that's great. In my work, I've found that procrastination is dangerous. It's easy to put off working on the club publication until the deadlines start looming, but you really have to resist that temptation. Now, Wayne doesn't have that luxury for the most part, just because he is weekly. But as I've mentioned, that last minute preparation leads to errors, and errors decrease your members' confidence in the accuracy and reliability of your product. Also, I think one thing that's important to keep in mind is that we all have to remember the member. You might represent your club and its interests, but you are working for the members. And so you always need to keep their needs and interests in mind. Finally, this is just our last question here before we open it up to any additional questions from viewers, if there happens to be any here. What tools are indispensable in your work on your respective publications? David, do you have any comments?
Well, I would say 2 things: hardware, obviously, and the main piece being a 17-inch laptop. I need a larger screen, and the laptop is great because I can take it with me anywhere in the house or anywhere I go. If we go out of town or whatever, I can work in the evenings if I choose. At home, I also have the ability, if I want to, hook a laptop up to an even larger monitor. And then, of course, in our club circumstance, we have a color laser printer that is here, because I actually print the newsletter here rather than going to a print service. In the long range, it's cheaper and more convenient. On the other side, software, I use Publisher just because that's what I inherited. But I also have, the Adobe Creative Cloud. So I have the latest version of Photoshop and the Adobe PDF, which is pretty important because I get articles submitted in all different ways, through the mail, emails, they're in PDF, they're in Word documents, they're all different ways. So the ability to take, as an example, a PDF, somebody emails me and I can easily convert that to a Word document, to make it easier to edit and put into the newsletter. And Photoshop for same thing. Images come in all different ways, physical ones, and that sometimes need some tender loving care that I can, do through Photoshop, or something they'll send electronically that just needs to be cleaned up and straightened up, or cell phone shots. They'll send a cell phone shot and it's of a coin and it's at an angle. I can go in Photoshop and skew that, bring it back into correct proportions, get rid of the background, pull the contrast up a little bit to make it look better. So those are the things that I couldn't live without.
Yeah. And Wayne, I see you have your screen up on the screen.
I do, yeah. I will second the motion for screen space. I have a laptop, and I think it is a 17-inch monitor, but I also have an external monitor that you're looking at now. And I think that's a 24-inch. So you can never have enough screen space. I mean, I use Chrome. I have multiple tabs open that come up automatically every time I bring up Chrome. I've got tabs that take me to where I need to manage the newsletter, to where I need to deal with photos, to our archive if I need to look up articles. They're all there at my fingertips. And I have multiple files open at once, whatever input from a reader or an author, that's in one window. I've got another window where I'm working on the actual draft. I've got a third window with, like templates, standard text that I can just cut and paste and put in. So I've just got a multitude of windows open all at once, and it really helps make me productive. In terms of being an electronic publication, the other tool that is indispensable to me that is irrelevant for a print publication is our Flickr archive. Flickr has been around for decades, and early on it's what we chose to use to host our photos. Initially, the E-Sylum was just a plain text publication. It kind of had to be because text was the lowest common denominator back when the internet started. People didn't have broadband, and it would be just impossible to send a large document that had large images in it. It just wouldn't have worked. But in 2007 or 2008, I believe, we switched over to full HTML and the ability to include images. So from day one, rather than including those big images in something that I would send out to the readers, we host them on Flickr. And it makes it very, very easy to upload the photos. I can do some basic editing and resizing and contrast control there, and just cut and paste the little HTML code that makes it appear in the email message. So those two things are indispensable. And I could go on, but they're all on the software side, so I'll stop there.
And likewise, I would be lost without my computer and a large screen and my software. We use Adobe InDesign for the Centinel. Quark Express is also a powerful program, but in the industry, Adobe InDesign is pretty much preferred. Also, I rely heavily on the Library of Congress's online photo archives for historic illustrations. Most of them you have permission to use them for whatever purpose that you wish. Wikipedia.org frequently offers illustrations that are in the public domain, but you always have to be sure to check the credits carefully to make sure that they truly are public domain and that you're not going to get yourself in any trouble. Finally, I also use iStock Photo, which is a subsidiary of Getty Images, which offers affordable stock photography that you can use to enliven any cover or a feature article. So that's the last of our questions. Andy, we're ready to turn it over to you if any viewers have any questions.
Yes, awesome. First, before I get to questions, thank you guys so much. I thought it was really fun. You guys all have your own different publications and they're very different, but it was fun to see the similarities between them all. And the software you guys use, some of you had the same thing, Adobe. So it's just fun to hear from all three of you as you run different types of publications. So I just thought that was cool. But we do have a few questions, so we can jump into those. First one, this question is for David. Being from Cincinnati, do you have any information about Charles M. Williams? He was a Cincinnati coin collector whose collection rivaled Lois Eliasberg's collection. I have been researching him lately.
Wow, I do not know that name, but you know, I'd be happy to have you contact me if you want to put an article in our publication about that. I will see. What was that name again?
Charles M. Williams.
I will look it up and see what I can find.
And also, if you wanted to, the gentleman that questioned that or proposed that question did a very good presentation on him during this symposium. I had the honor of facilitating him on Thursday, I believe. Maybe that was yesterday, I don't know. So there's one in the NNP. It'll be on our website in a few weeks if you wanted to check that out. But
okay.
Another question. It's a question for all three of you, but mainly for Wayne. Do you publish requests for information pertaining to the start of a new numismatic research project?
Absolutely. We've done that multiple times in the past. So if anyone is starting a project, please do reach out to us, and we'll be happy to put that in there. It goes out to such a wide range of people. We have, top collectors, top dealers, museum curators, authors. It's a great place to start, and we're very happy to do that.
And we have a readership of about 1,600 right now, and I'm always happy to run requests for research assistance as well.
Another question. What is the most rewarding part of editing?
Let me take a crack at that first. So often people who write in, they may have wonderful research, they might have a great passion for what they do, but maybe they have problems getting their message across. And for me, being able to edit an article without changing that writer's tone and helping to communicate that enthusiasm they have for their subject, and finding illustrations that will help to likewise draw readers in so that they will be intrigued as well and will read the article and enjoy it. That to me is the most fun, for sure.
Similarly, go ahead.
Oh, all right. I was just going to say, I mean, for me, it's the opportunity to help kind of coordinate the efforts of multiple readers. The greatest example of this, on our slide that we put up earlier, there's a picture of a 1792 half diem. And I'd gotten a comment from a reader that said, hey, there's this document that's coming up in an auction soon. And it's in a frame, and along with the document, it looks like there's a little coin. But to me, it kind of looks like a half diem. Do you know anything about this? And I reached out to the auction house, and long story short, it turns out that in that frame was an NGC slab with a genuine 1792 half dime. And that coin was worth several times what that document was. And it was just really interesting going back and forth with my contributors, primarily Pete Smith, who was one of the co-authors on the book about 1792 coinage. He maintains the survey or the census of the coins, and it was a coin that was not previously recorded on the census. So to me, that was just delightful to have a small part in kind of coordinating the efforts of multiple people to learn something new about numismatics.
For me, it's just the satisfaction of particular layout when it turns out really well, and at the same time, if one of our authors has written something that I think is really, really good, to be able to get that out to our members and into the wider world, that's a good feeling.
Thank you, guys. Another question. It says, Wayne, how much time a week on average does it take you to make one E-Sylum issue?
That has got to be the number one question that I get from people. Yeah, I spend a lot of time, but it's not a full-time job. People think it is, but you know, I've got a day job. I've got a wife and kids and a long commute. So the bulk of it is done on the weekends. I keep up with my email every day during the week, basically, you know, putting things aside for the weekend. But I pretty much, you know, other than, you know, meals and whatever comes up with my family, I'm like basically spending, you know, the whole weekend pulling it together. Didn't always used to be that way. It was a much smaller publication when we started, but it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And well, so did my kids, and they're adults now and out of the house. So, you know, I don't have, you know, daddy play with me to deal with anymore. I've got a little more time on my hands. So that's kind of what I do. And luckily it's something that I still find fun.
Awesome. And guys, I can open that one up to you guys too, Barbara and David. What does that look like for you guys? What is the time commitment for one of your issues?
David, why don't you go ahead, since you're a monthly, so.
You know, I don't track it, and it obviously varies. Again, like I mentioned before, the size of the publication can be small to quite large. So I would say, you know, if it's just 8 pages, a lot of times I pull that together, you know, pretty quickly over a weekend, and that's not working, you know, all day, both days or anything like that. Other ones, it's much longer. I worked this morning on one article for this issue. I probably worked 3 hours on it, straightening out images. So, and these are images supplied by the author. So I don't know, this one I'll probably wind up maybe with 12 hours in it. Don't know.
And I tend to put each issue of the Centinel together over a period of about 3.5 weeks. Now that's not working full time. That's working several hours a day. When things get a little closer, we're going to press with the winter issue on December 7th. And so I got an earlier start on it this time because of the holidays. I wanted to make sure I didn't blow my deadline here, but otherwise, yes, it takes me about several hours a day for about 3 weeks.
Awesome. And we have one comment in here, which I will read shortly, but no other questions. So if anyone in the audience has questions, feel free to put them in there. We still have a little bit of time to answer those. The comment is regarding Charles Williams, the collector mentioned earlier. And this gentleman recommends going to the electronic archives of the Numismatist. And search the name, and he says you'll get numerous hits. So if that was something you wanted to dive into more, the Numismatist would be a good place to start, it looks like.
And I use that archive all the time. It's a wonderful tool. If you're a member, you can set up free access to the Numismatist archives. Awesome.
Yeah, well, no other questions have popped in, so I'll go ahead and start wrapping up. But thank you guys again, just for volunteering you guys' time and coming and speaking with us. We really enjoyed it. We had several comments in the Q&A as well, just with attendees saying how much they enjoyed it, and yeah, I got a lot out of this presentation. So thank you guys again. And for the attendees, we hope that you're able to watch another presentation. We have one coming up here at 2:30, and then our last one of the day is starting at 5:30. So we hope you guys can jump in onto another presentation throughout the day, if your schedule allows. But yeah, that is the end of this presentation. So thank you guys, and thank you guys all for attending.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share.
Yep.
Thank you.